Ned Kirby is a search and rescue officer for the Timberland National Park and Nature Preserve. He usually worked with the fire watchman, ranger, Nestor. No first name, no last name, just Nestor, like the man from the Odyssey. Nestor isn't all that tall or big, skinnier than Kirby, and a few centimeters shorter, but definitely far more intimidating. Nestor doesn't smile much. When he does, it's incredibly bitter or mocking, or just self-satisfied little smirk. He only smiles with his teeth if he's being sarcastic. Nestor has straight brown hair, a narrow, hawkish face, and watery gray eyes that saw right through you, but didn't stop to read anything inside. He stayed at the park almost year-round up, in the fire watch towers. He wasn't particularly friendly, but also not outright mean. If you had patience, he made for a decent friend, though he warmed up slower than the winter thaw. Kirby just knew he was exactly the kind of person you would want around if there was danger. It was like Nestor could just turn off fear. Nothing frightened him in the least, and he had to be nearly 2 decades younger than Kirby himself, and definitely hadn't worked at the park as long, but seemed to already somehow have the same amount of experience. "No, don't step on that log," Nestor said dully, from behind Kirby. Kirby moved his foot back onto the path. "Why?" he asked, not turning around and just studying the woods ahead of him. Nestor walked up next to Kirby and gave it a kick. It crumbled like sand. Rotted dry. Kirby looked past the hole in the log and saw a small ditch. "Could have sprained something." "Thanks, Nestor," Kirby said. Nestor just grunted. He didn't talk much. His voice was usually monotoned, and conversation was often very dry. Kirby sighed, then directed his attention back up to where he'd been looking earlier. He gestured with his thermos. "What's that look like to you?" Nestor squinted and pushed back the brim of his hat slightly. "A staircase?" Kirby put his hands on his hips. "You're in this area a lot more than I am. When was the last time you were out here?" "Last week." "This wasn't here last week, was it?" Kirby asked. "No, it wasn't," Nestor agreed. He carefully stepped over the ditch that could have snapped Kirby's ankle and walked closer to it. Kirby followed. It didn't look very remarkable. 8 steps, a small landing, and 3 more steps in the perpendicular direction. They have beige carpeting. The walls all had like pale striped wallpaper. The only weird thing about them was they were out here and not, say, in a small duplex somewhere in town. Nestor stopped a few feet away, so Kirby did too. Kirby did have more experience, but Nestor had an uncanny sense of unusual things like this. After a long moment, Nestor spoke again. I think we should just go back to the trail and pretend we didn't even notice this thing." Kirby swallowed thickly because Nestor sounded nervous. He had never sounded nervous before. "I don't like looking at it." "It's all right. We'll go ahead then," Kirby reassured, grabbing the Firewatch Ranger by the arm and guided him back to the trail. "Sun's setting in a little bit. You need to get back to the tower sometime soon, right?" "Uh-huh," Nestor disagreed. "It's the 16th. I have night patrol." His pale pupils made his eyes look like twin moons. Kirby stopped walking. Nestor still seemed uneasy, which was disturbing in itself, but at least he was getting more relaxed the further away they got. "Do you want me to go with you?" Nestor shook his head. "No, go home." And the way Nestor's eyes just bore through him like a beam of light through the water in a glass, sent shivers down his spine, so Kirby dropped it. "All right, kiddo, take care." The hollowest laugh he'd ever heard ring around in his head. "I will." Kirby didn't turn to look at Nestor's face. When they reached the fork in the trail, he could hear the open smile. Instead, he blindly reached out and clapped the younger on the shoulder. "Good kid, Nestor, good kid. You scare the hell out of me, by the way," as he listened to Nestor walk away. My normal shifts were during the day, 9 to 5 like most people. But on that day, we were short-handed on the night shift staff because the last person who worked during those hours had just quit. We had lately had a whole bunch of people just quitting the night shift, so that meant I had the cover. Weirdly enough, I had never had to work on the graveyard shift before then, and I was actually excited for it. I had brought some coffee and 5-hour energy with me because those hours ran 10 to 5, and there was no way I'd make it that far naturally. I got to my tower right before 10, when it was already pitch black and the cold July night had fully set in. The tower was fairly tall, with several flights of stairs leading up to the top. The whole thing was mostly surrounded by thick forest, except for the trail that I had come from, and a murky pond that was just to the right of the tower's legs. The pond itself was covered in those little frog pads, and had algae floating around over the surface. It was actually quite big for a natural lagoon. I climbed up, and all I could hear was non-stop sounds of crickets, frogs, and the occasional owl. When I hit the top, I fumbled with my keys until I finally found the right one and walked right in. The one room was small and square-shaped. 3 of the walls were mostly glass, and the other one was opaque and had the door that I just came in. The roof went up like a pyramid for a short length until it peaked, and it was all made of wood. To my left was a nicely made bed and a nightstand with a lamp and a flashlight on top. Not like I'd be using the bed though. On the wall next to that was my CB radio and communication stand, which every one of those towers had. Next to that sat a refrigerator and a microwave, which was part of the small kitchen that extended to the other wall. Inside the kitchen on the right wall were several cabinets, some small ones that held snacks and some canned food, and another set of giant cabinets that I couldn't open, which likely had like vacuums or other cleaning supplies that were above my pay grade, roomy. I went over to the communication stand and did my standard check to make sure everything was working properly. I called into the ranger station's channel and said, "Well, Donnie, it looks like it's just you and me tonight." Donnie didn't say anything back, so I figured he was just taking like a shit or something. I went and grabbed the flashlight on the stand and reached out into one of the drawers, pulling out a set of binoculars from it. I went back out onto the balcony and checked to make sure there were no fire hazards or any of the other kind of dangers. Once I checked that box off of my to-do list, I headed back inside and pulled the chair from the communication stand and put it by one of the glass walls and grabbed a granola bar from one of the kitchen cabinets to munch on. I put the binoculars up to my eyes and looked over the surrounding forest. It didn't seem like any animals were up and about, and no birds were in the sky either. I skimmed over a couple of clearings to make sure that no teenagers were off camping illegally. Then I peeked over and looked at the far ridge, where I saw a snowman standing alone in a gap of the trees. Hold the fuck up. It was July. I peeked again and realized that it wasn't a snowman, but some kid in a shitty ghost costume. It looked like the ones from Charlie Brown, with the big black holes for eyes. It looked more like they were colored black and not actually holes. The kid was standing still and just staring right into my direction, unmoving. I couldn't see the kid's parents anywhere though, and by now it was rolling on 11, so that kind of meant that something was up. I broke contact on the kid and I walked to the radio, calling into the station. "Donnie, you off the shitter yet?" "Barely made it out, but I'm here." I chuckled. Donnie was always good for a laugh. There's some kid with a blanket walking around the southeast sector, and they look alone." "A blanket? What the hell are you talking about?" "It's a ghost costume. It's got black holes for eyes and stuff." "You mean like Charlie Brown? Can you check it out?" "Yeah, I'll go walk and see what's up. I'll call in on the walkie-talkie to tell you what I see." "Roger that." I turned off the radio and crossed over to the nightstand drawer to grab the walkie-talkie. Once I had it, I sat back down in the chair and put my binoculars to my eyes, zooming into where the kid was. The ridge was empty, with no kid in sight, which I knew would make this 1,000 times harder. I pulled up the antenna on the walkie-talkie and dialed to the right channel. "Donnie, you hear me?" "Yep, loud and clear. I'm getting closer to the sector. I'm heading up to the ridge for a vantage point." "Perfect. That's where I saw the kid, but they've moved on since then." "Well, I'll just check around and see if I can find anything." I watched as Donnie came over the ridge, waving his flashlight around in the dark, until he looked towards the tower and shrugged. "Nothing over here." "Damn, hopefully he turns up again. Until then, I'll just notify the police and check for any missing reports." "Alright, I'll go back too." Donnie's voice cut out, and I saw his flashlight turn off in the distance. The small lit-up spot where he stood was shallow in darkness. "Donnie, you there? Donnie?" I heard no response, and I rushed outside of the door and around the corner where I saw him, yelling his name, only to hear my voice echo into the woods. And that's when it hit me. There wasn't another single sound in the entire forest. The crickets and frogs stopped chirping. The wind didn't rustle through the leaves. Everything was completely standstill. I could hear my heartbeat throbbing in my ears, and nothing else. I moved my flashlight around the woods for some futile attempt of finding him. I got into that state of mind where I got so scared my throat closed up. And if I moved, I felt like something very bad was going to happen. I had to do something now. I turned around, and as I did, I glanced at the stairs below me. At the bottom of the stairs stood a skinny, horrifically angled woman. She was tall, dripping with water, with black hair and dark, murky blue skin that stretched across her bent and broken bones. Her gray dress was shredded, and her black shoes were muddy and wet. And her face, her eyes were a milky white, and her mouth hung wide open like a snake, like her jaw had been grossly broken. She let out a blood-curdling, ear-piercing scream of agony and began to shuffle up the stairs so fucking fast that I had snapped out of my fear lock, and I ran the fuck back inside, slamming the door and locking it behind me. There was no way she could run that fast, even if all of her bones weren't broken. They were all in wrong directions. I ran back to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find, and then I pulled out the walkie-talkie, screaming into it. "Is anyone there? Donnie, where the fuck are you? Someone answer me, goddammit!" Then I heard the creaking of the door. I slowly turned and froze when I saw what was there. The door was still there, locked and shut, and had been undisturbed. What scared me was the once locked giant cabinet that now stood open, with a kid dressed like a Charlie Brown ghost standing just in front of it. stood there, unmoving, until I heard the little shit giggle. I recognized that giggle. No fucking way. I pulled off the sheet and it was Donnie's kid, Marvin, sporting a smirk and a walkie-talkie. "Dad! Joey, I got him." Ha! Pissed his pants just like I said he would, right? He and his other son laughed from the other end of the walkie. I was so mad, but glad that I wasn't about to get murdered in a goddamn wooden tower. I grabbed his walkie-talkie and shot back. "Pissed me off is what you did. You fucking asshole. I hope you're happy." Hearing you scream like a little girl sure did make me happy, all right. Yeah, screw you too. That wasn't even me. That was your stupid zombie chick. Who was that, your wife? My what? Does the ghost look like a zombie from that far away? You said yourself it looked like Charlie. Not the ghost, dumbass. The woman on the stairs. She screamed and ran up them so fast, so that she could scare me back into the tower. Hell, she must have been like an Olympic runner. Did you get Usain Bolt? Dean. I didn't put no woman on the stairs. I'm a park ranger at Yellowstone. A couple weeks ago, I was exploring the Lamar Valley, about 11 miles from the nearest road, and even further to the park boundary. There in the middle of the trail is a perfectly severed deer head. No blood, no raggedness at the severance. Perfectly intact. This is weird because I have seen wolf and bear kills, and I used to find cougar kills in SD with radio tracking just after the cougar made them. But this was not any of those things. The head was completely uneaten. Eyes, tongue, everything intact. Even the ravens hadn't even touched it yet. No catching, no scat. Right smack in the trail. But again, no blood. Even a human doing it still made no conventional sense. It was a doe, so it had no antlers. Plus, why leave it in the trail? Whole thing, even broad daylight, gave me chills. Just as oceans of wavy grass, bison calmly gazing, and perfectly clean deer head right on the path for no reason. So now I'm curious how it got there. Hey guys, I just wanted to say thanks for watching and I really hope you enjoyed it. I've been trying to get more of these videos that you guys have been liking a lot more. I'm going to start posting more polls and different ideas that you guys might like, so make sure to be on the lookout for that. Once again, thanks for watching and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel, subscribe. We're doing nothing but growing. If you would like to see more of these, make sure to comment down in the comment section as well. Make sure to check out the links in my description as well, my Twitter, Instagram, and even my Gmail if you want to submit a story. Make sure to go check those out. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one. I don't really know what to say now, so bye.